Hey guys, Mr. McSweeney here to help you with direct object pronouns. So let's do a quick review and get some common language surrounding this so that when we're talking about the grammar aspect of this, no one's getting confused. All of these definitions are not completely encompassing, grammatically speaking, but they will help us get through some of these basic language courses. So let's start with subject. A subject is typically the thing that does the action. So what is the action? Well, that's the verb. So the verb is the action. So the subject is doing something, the verb, and that's typically affecting something else. And that brings us to object. So what's an object? Well, an object is what receives the action. The two objects that we typically deal with in basic language level classes are direct objects and indirect objects. A direct object is the object that directly receives the action, which would make an indirect object an object that indirectly receives the action. So we also have these words called pronouns, and pronouns are words that replace a noun. And a noun is a person, place, or thing. So that brings us to subject pronouns. And a subject pronoun is a word that replaces a subject. We should be really familiar with those. Those are yo, tú, él, ella, nosotros, all of those. Now we have direct object pronouns. All right, so all it is a word that replaces a direct object. And an indirect object pronoun, well, that would be a word that replaces an indirect object. That's going to give us a solid baseline of vocab that we can kind of share together. Okay, so let's take a look at an example that kind of has some of these elements. A real simple sentence: Mr. McSweeney drinks coffee. So let's kind of break this down real quick. The subject, who's doing the action? Mr. McSweeney. What is he doing? Well, he drinks. That's our verb. That's the action. So Mr. McSweeney is drinking something, and that something is coffee. So coffee is receiving the action, and that makes it our object. Okay? Now, what kind of object is it? We have direct and indirect. Am I directly drinking the coffee? Yes. If it kept going and it said from a mug, well, then the mug would be the indirect object, because I'm not drinking a mug, I'm drinking coffee, but the mug would receive the action of my drinking. But let's not go that far. So let's take a look at this and try to simplify it. Mr. McSweeney drinks coffee. So if we look at our pronouns and try to simplify this sentence, Mr. McSweeney can change to he. We're not going to simplify the verb because the verb is just the verb. And then we have the object. So let's turn that object into a pronoun. And in this case, it's going to be it. So instead of saying Mr. McSweeney drinks coffee, you could say he drinks it. Now, all of this is really dependent, whenever you simplify sentences, it's really dependent on the context, right? If you walked up and said, oh, he drinks it, nobody would know what you're talking about. Typically, these pronouns start popping up in a prolonged conversation, even usually the second or third time something's mentioned. Oh, Mr. McSweeney drinks coffee? Yeah, he drinks coffee. Oh, he drinks it all the time. So you can see that there's a natural progression as we simplify. So our direct object pronouns in Spanish are me for me, te for you, lo for him, la for her. All right, so let's bring it back here. So it is never a subject in Spanish. It is a subject oftentimes in English. In Spanish, you just don't say it. But it can be an object. Now, when it's an object, it depends on whether or not it is masculine or feminine. So if the it is a masculine thing, it's going to be lo, and if it's a feminine thing, it's going to be la. So you'll kind of see that commonality there. Let's go back to our chart. For us, we say nos. For you, when it's plural and we're kind of doing the vosotros thing, it's going to be os. For them, if it's mixed or a masculine group of things, you're going to say los. For them, if it's only feminine things, you're going to say las. And for you, plural, if we're referencing ustedes, it kind of depends on the grouping, if it's masculine, feminine. So it's going to be los or las, kind of depending on what that is. All right. So let's take a look at some examples here. Where do these direct object pronouns go? They go either in front of the conjugated verb or attached to an infinitive verb. Now, there are some variations with that, like with commands and things, but don't get too carried away. This is just an intro lesson to this. So let's take a look at an example of putting it before the verb. In the sentence, yo tengo que hacer mi tarea, I have to do my homework, we are going to change mi tarea, my homework, to it. So since it's la tarea, we're going to use the direct object pronoun la. And we're going to put that in front of our conjugated verb, tengo. And our new sentence becomes, yo la tengo que hacer. Now this is where context becomes super important, because if you don't know what we're talking about, that sentence could be really confusing. So let's look at what happens if we put it attached to the infinitive. Same example. Yo tengo que hacer mi tarea. We already know la tarea, feminine, so we're going to change it to la, and we literally attach it to our infinitive verb hacer. Yo tengo que hacerla. So maybe the sentence is like this. Oh, ¿tú tienes tarea? Sí, yo tengo tarea. Yo la tengo que hacer. So you might hear a conversation very similar to that. Here's another example. Queremos beber el café. El café, the coffee, is masculine, so we're going to change it to lo. And we can put it before our conjugated verb. Lo queremos beber. Or we can attach it to that infinitive. Queremos beberlo. So you might hear a conversation that goes like this. Yo quiero café. ¿Ustedes quieren café? Oh, sí. Nosotros lo queremos beber. It could go something like that. This can be kind of confusing. Take your time with it. I hope this video helps, and good luck.